This presentation outlines a potential new project that could significantly improve the level of support for stroke survivors in Australia, particularly those living in regional and rural communities. The project makes use of two major technological advances that have become available in the last year or so, and which can confidently be predicted to play a major role in the future delivery of health services in Australia. This presentation has been prepared by a stroke survivor of 9 years who has been involved in community-based peer support for stroke survivors for many of those years. I am very keen to see substantial progress in the provision of community-based and evidence-based stroke rehabilitation services to my fellow stroke survivors throughout Australia. Before my stroke, I worked for many years in the IT industry, so I am very confident about the technical feasibility of this project, provided that it is adequately funded and staffed, and not diverted by political or professional disagreements, or the unwillingness of key stakeholders to cooperate in the common interest of stroke survivors and their carers. The aim of the proposed stroke rehabilitation project is to dramatically improve the effectiveness of community-based stroke rehabilitation services available to all Australians, regardless of whether they live in metropolitan areas, regional areas, or rural areas. This will be achieved by extending the excellent hospital-based stroke rehabilitation services into the communities where stroke survivors and their carers struggle to rebuild their post-stroke lives. According to statistics published on the National Stroke Foundation website, stroke is Australia's second single greatest killer after coronary heart disease and is a leading cause of disability. In 2010, about 60,000 Australians, or 0.29% of the total population, suffered either a new or recurrent stroke. 1 in 5 people having a first ever stroke die within 1 month, and 1 in 3 die within a year. The number of strokes will increase each year due to the ageing population unless something is done to reduce the incidence rate. About 88% of stroke survivors live at home, and most have a physical, mental, or cognitive disability. Close to 20% of all strokes occur in people under 55 years of age. And strokes cost Australia an estimated $2.14 billion each year. These figures suggest that about 35,000 stroke survivors, or 0.16% of the population, will be discharged each year from hospital to live in their communities with a permanent disability. And of these stroke survivors, about 7,000 will be people below 55 years of age. Now, the question I wish to address here is what happens to those stroke survivors and to their carers and family members when their loved ones get discharged back into their communities and the electorates around Australia. If you talk to stroke survivors and carers in your communities, or to the National Stroke Foundation, you will soon discover that the availability and quality of specialist stroke rehabilitation services falls off very quickly and becomes extremely fragmented once the stroke survivor is discharged from hospital and back into their communities. There is a chronic lack of specialist psychological services for stroke survivors and their carers in the critical months after their discharge from hospital. These services are needed to address the negative attitudes and moods that often accompany physical, mental, and cognitive disabilities. Whereas positive attitudes and moods both improve stroke recovery and avoid the all too frequent descent into the stroke recovery black hole and into depression. Positive attitudes and moods also help stroke survivors re-establish their important family relationships and to rebuild connections with friends and the community. And, as always seems to be the case, these problems with the availability and quality of stroke rehab services are much more pronounced in regional and rural areas throughout Australia.